Howdy, y'all, and welcome to our very first Cattleman's Cyberspace Charity Social. Hopefully you're going to come along on this intergalactic journey with us. This is our first time doing a virtual event, so welcome. We're excited to have you here. Come join us. I am your host. My name is Danielle, if you don't know me. I am the educator here at the Williamson Museum, and we're going to go on an intergalactic journey. I like that word, so you're going to hear me say it a lot. We're going to have living history come to life. We're going to talk to some Wilco legends, hear about Wilco legends, do some food and cocktail demos, and you're going to learn a little bit about the Williamson Museum. The Williamson Museum is a 501c3 nonprofit that was actually incorporated in 1997 to collect, preserve, and exhibit items relating to the rich culture and heritage of Williamson County. We actually opened in this building at 716 South Austin Avenue in the old Farmer State Bank building in 2003, 17 years ago. Wow, what a journey. But before we get a little bit more into Williamson County or what we're going to do here, first of all, the most important, since this is a virtual event, technical support. If you are having technical problems with our auction, our silent auction, raffles, fun to need, have questions, you can email. This is also an announcement on our main page on there under the frequently asked questions. You can email Andrea Robichaux, our visitor services coordinator, and also one of the people you'll see tonight. Her email is, it's kind of a fun Cajun last name, so I'll spell it out real slow. AROBISHEAUX@williamsonmuseum.org. You can email her and ask questions. We'll be checking that throughout the night. Also, if you can catch that last name and you couldn't find the frequently asked questions on our pages, you can call our phone at 512-943-1670, but I will let you know you'll be part of the live stream. You'll hear the phone ring up here because we are in a corner of the museum. What better place to bring to life our virtual event? So that's a little bit about our technical support. It's not too late to register or bid. Our silent auction has been open since last night at 6 p.m. and they will close tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. You don't even have to watch it. You can set a max bid, and it'll even text you if you get outbid. But make sure you're bidding people. Get competitive. We have some great auction items, things like from Mason Crosby and Nolan Ryan, local baskets full of artisan goods, to one-of-a-kind COVID-safe experiences right here in the museum with the wonderful staff. I am not biased at all. But that's the technical. That's a little bit about our auctions. I want to thank some very special people. One, I want to thank our sponsors, because without them, this event virtually wouldn't be possible. It's a little pun there. I make myself laugh. I want to thank Carolyn Holloway and the Palace, Jean Hauk, Trish Lepacki and Bob Waring, Garver, T.A. Todd Construction, Rhonda Gerke, Realty Austin, Six Whiskey, The Day Tripper, and Quentin's Fine Jewelers. And I want to thank you for watching, registering, and donating to the Williamson Museum. Nothing is possible without you guys, our patrons. 2019 was a banner year. It was one of the best years ever for the museum. We saw over 26,327 Central Texas students, put together 9 exhibits in 2 locations, did 1,140 individual programs, and saw 18,965 visitors at 2 locations. 2020, like everyone has experienced, threw the museum a curveball. Our last in-person program happened on March 13th, 2020, when about the world shut down. But on that day, we were actually on track to beat our record-breaking year. Remember, last year we saw 26,327 Central Texas students. Well, this year we were already on track, and by March, we had seen 18,929 Central Texas students. But it shut down and we didn't quite see people. But you know what? We are nothing but resourceful. We adapted to virtual programming. And guess what? Welcome to our 47th virtual program that we have hosted since March. And not everything has been adaptable and successful. We did have some failures. And we were affected by the pandemic. We were closed for 2 months. But we also had to sell our second location. It just became unsustainable for us as a small staff without the support we needed to run that second location. But with your support, with your money, with your donations, you can help us continue to make sure that we reach every single part of Williamson County. Because every student in Williamson County, every citizen of Williamson County deserves to see the stories come to life of their local history and their county. It makes it impactful when students and people alike can come in. In fact, when we were setting up for the live stream, we had a small little boy. We have a historic bank door, right? And he was waving and we were waving and we weren't quite open because we closed early to set up. And he opened our historic mail slot and he said, "I want to come in." And we let him in. And just think about that connection that we made with that one small child. We want to do that with every single person in Williamson County. And we can't do that without your support. So we need your help and we need your money. I'm talking about money moolah. Because although we've adapted to virtual programs, that takes technology. We have some capabilities with some new staff like Catherine Conrad that we just hired literally 2 days ago, and she's running all the technology for us today. But if we want to continue to create virtual programs and field trips, we can't do it without your support and money, because once again, technology costs money. But the mission of the Williamson Museum is to promote the culture and heritage of Williamson County through education, preservation, acquisition, and exhibition. And you know what? Tonight, you're going to see all of those examples. I'm just one person. We do have a full-time staff of 4, but actually we haven't hired that 4th person. We're still looking for an executive director. So for most of 2020, we've been a full-time staff of 3. And actually for a while, we were a full-time staff of 2. But we've been able to continue to put those wonderful programs together. And without your support, we wouldn't be able to do it. So please make sure that you're bidding, donating. You're going to hear me talk about money all the time because you know what? We need your money. But to get me off the screen and make living history come alive, one of our programs is our living history group, Voices of the Past. And you can see them at different events. In fact, on November 7th, we are doing a cemetery tour at IOF. We're going to be talking about pandemics, and it's going to be called Community Courage through Williamson County, that helps share the stories of Williamson County. And here is one of our volunteers to tell some stories of the Chisholm Trail.
Well, howdy. I'm Charlie Goodnight. And they came here and asked me to tell some stories about myself, but being the modest man that I am, well, I'll just talk about myself in the second person. Now, I came from Illinois, age of 10, pretty much walked the whole way, rode some mules part of the way, but I consider myself one of the rags to riches people. I started with absolutely nothing, ended up a millionaire, and then ended up with nothing. Well, remember the movie Lonesome Dove? Well, that's pretty much taken after my life. I was an Indian fighter. I was a Texas Ranger. I was a scout in the Civil War. And afterwards, I read up a man named Oliver Lovett, and him and I went into the cattle business together. Now, we ran some good herds down the Chisholm Trail. I was credited with inventing the chuck wagon, because there wasn't too many places you could stop to eat on the way. But we had a problem. Here in Texas, we had a little thing called the Texas tick. And our cows were immune to it, but the cows But our cattle in Kansas and Missouri were not, and they were dying off, and they started quarantining the roads. So we got our heads together, and we came up with another trail. It was called the Love It Goodnight Trail. Well, we took our cattle there. We decided to expand. We went all the way into New Mexico. Well, my good friend, Oliver Luggett, was killed by Indians there. But before he died, he made me promise that I would take him back to Texas and bury him. Well, I threw his body on a horse, wrapped it in a blanket, got back to Texas with a very stiff Oliver, and planted him here in Texas. Well, I went on to become quite a wealthy rancher. In fact, I was known as the father of the Panhandle Ranchers, had a very large ranch there, J&R Ranch. I was one of the few men that ever made a treaty with Coin Parker that last. I promised him a certain amount of cattle every year if he wouldn't raid our herds. And he kept his word, and I kept my word. Well, making a lot of money, I felt it was my duty to spread it around to help people. Actually, it was my wife's idea to do that. So we started churches. We started over 16 churches throughout Texas. We started 23 schools here in throughout Texas, as well as the Goodnight College. So I felt, well, at least my wife felt, we were doing a lot of good with our money. Well, unfortunately, my wife passed away. But at the age of 92, being you can tell, a spry young man that I am, I married a 26-year-old woman. She was actually a relative, second cousin. Within 6 months, she was pregnant. I'm taking full credit for that, even at 92. Well, I ended up losing all my money. I invested it all into a silver mine in Mexico, went broke, had to sell my ranch, but on the condition that I could live there for the rest of my life. They kept their words, and I had a pretty good time. I died at 93. And things were going quite well up until, obviously, my death. I want to mention something else, too. I'm going to step out of character. Wait a minute. They taught me how to do this in a class. I step out of character. A lot of times people ask me, why do I do this? Why do I get dressed up like this in other outfits? Well, not to mention it's a lot of fun. But we go to schools, like was mentioned. We do a lot of programs there. My job and the job of the other reenactors is not to actually teach them anything. That's the job of their teachers, which are a lot better at it than I'd ever be. But my job and the job of other reenactors is get the people excited, get our students excited. When we go in to see our students in a group and we're in a costume, an outfit like this, you can see their excitement in their eyes. If I can get one student, one person interested in history, I figure I've done my job. So at this point, I want to remind you all, dig deep in those pockets, come up with some money, support this museum, because this is your museum and it needs your support. So I want to thank you and say good night.
Everyone, I just have a few reminders about our auction. Again, our auction is live now. It actually opened up yesterday. It'll be open till 9 a.m. Sunday, so if you wake up in the middle of the night and want to bid again, go ahead. Once you register on that main page, on the page you're on right now, you will receive a link. That link will get you to the bidding page, and it'll have all your information in, as well as your credit card already, because you already purchased the admission. So you're good to go. Occasionally, some people may get 2 emails or text messages with links. I want to make sure that you guys are clicking on the Welcome to Online Bidding. That is the correct link that will get you to the bidding site. If you click on the other one that says, I think, Welcome to Cattleman's Ball, that will actually have you re-register. You don't want to do that. So make sure Welcome to Online Bidding. Lastly, I want to remind everyone that all of our packages have a buy now option. So if you see something that you just can't live without and you're worried that someone might outbid you, go ahead and buy it. Once you click that bottom, I think it's the third option for bidding, it'll actually remove it from the site and it is yours. And I'm going to show you guys a little example of one of our baskets. This is our Georgetown basket. So some of those pictures, you can't really see everything that's in it, but these baskets are full of stuff. And most of it, if not all of it, is locally donated, locally made. All of our pillows are hand stitched by Mickey Ross, so thank you again for that. We've got some masks in here. We have these special cups that were made for the museum, as well as some bags. So make sure, look at those details on these baskets, because there's just so much in that the pictures don't do it justice. All right, now keep bidding out there.
I'm back. How is our intergalactic journey going? Hopefully better than my speaking. I'm going to share some museum statistics for you. Did you know that the museum website actually has a new visitor every 9 minutes? And almost every single year, our museum volunteers, which you've already heard from one tonight, you'll hear from 2 more later, donate over 4,127 volunteer hours. That is over 172 days worth of time. We cannot operate this museum without your support and your money, obviously, but we cannot run this museum without our volunteers. They are the backbone of this institution. In fiscal year 2020, we opened 3 brand new exhibits. And they all actually happened to fall during this pandemic. First, in May and June, we actually opened our Trains of Williamson County. It's interesting to think about how our county in Williamson County was woven with trains. In fact, fun fact, anybody have a guess of what town got the first train? Guess what? Most people in Williamson County probably wouldn't even think about it. Thrall. Thrall because they had oil, and then Taylor because of the cotton market. But once that started happening, our county started to become connected. So we chose Trains to tell the story of Williamson County for Preservation Month, which falls in May. In July and August, we actually put together Justice herself, 100 years of women's suffrage. And you'll hear about from one of those suffragettes a little bit later, Jessie Daniel Ames. And just this past month in September, we opened In Memoriam, the Art of Victorian Mourning. In addition to the exhibits that we went ahead and put on ourselves, we every month showcase a different local artist. Because we're not just a history museum, we're making everybody's stories come alive. We featured 6 local monthly art exhibits, and even one of the featured photographers from the Georgetown Photography Festival, which you can catch next March. And as I said earlier, this is our 47th live virtual program. We've come a long way since our first one that we did in March, Three-Legged Willie, where Andrew was literally holding the camera the whole time and it's unsteady, right? We've gotten tripods, we've gotten lights, we are learning. And as I said, I haven't said this part before, I've thrown a lot of student numbers at you. I just really want to show this impact. Our biggest thing that we do here at the museum is our museum outreach. And in the past 5 years, we have seen over 83,126 local Central Texas students. There is not a museum that has a bigger reach than us, except for the Bob Bullock Texas State History Museum. And if we're talking about outreach, actually going into the classrooms, you can hands down, we've done the research, say that we have the biggest impact of any local museum here in the classroom. And that is not possible without your support. And I had said we were on track for our best year ever. That March 13th, we had seen 18,929 students. And as educator, I want you to know that my busy time starts in March. I am almost in the classroom every single day, normally. And then March goes into April, which is super busy as well, into May. And May, this past May, we should have celebrated our 15th annual Pioneer Day at Old Settlers, where we're not just in the museum making history come alive, we're at actual old cabins that were used by the pioneers, the Swedish settlers, the Palm Mansion. We're literally making history come to life where history was made. And that's not possible without your support. And this year, we're excited, no matter what comes, as long as we are not in a shutdown, we will be having our big, spectacular 15th annual celebration of Pioneer Days. And it's not just about education and kids. Did you know that we have over 13,000 artifacts in our exhibits? Because truly, without the artifacts, we can't tell the story of Williamson County. I wouldn't be able to make my trunks. We have to have those artifacts to tell the story. So it's everything from Swedish settlers to the Chisholm Trail to even the first wine bottle that was ever bottled in Williamson County. And this is only possible, as I said earlier, with 4 full-time staff members, 2 part-time, and a load of volunteers. Do you want to help us? Well, you can help donate your time, your treasure, or your talent. So here are some ways. Besides, bidding, so you should keep bidding. Make a donation. Join our board of directors. Become a museum member. You get special access to things, and sometimes you're the only people invited to exhibit openings. Or want to have fun with us? Become a volunteer and you get hands-on experience in a museum. We'll take pretty much from late middle school to undetermined, right? Anybody. If you want to come be a volunteer, we'll take you. And I've probably come to the main question, probably 2 questions. Why am I standing here with a cardboard cutout man? And 2, why did we call this a space cowboy besides Cattleman's Cyberspace charity social? Well, I am standing with Williamson County's very own space cowboy, Henry Pearl Okra Compton. My mother said I shouldn't talk with so many hands, but I'm just excited about the museum. So, right here, Henry Pearl Okra Compton. What's his deal? Well, if you're new to Georgetown, you may have heard that Georgetown is the red poppy capital of Texas, and Georgetown is the county seat of Williamson County. Well, you know why Georgetown's the red poppy capital of Texas? It's because of this guy, Henry Pearl Okra Compton. He was a World War I soldier, and he visited Flanders Fields in France, and he was so moved, as the poppy has become a remembrance flower, that he actually mailed those red poppy seeds in a tobacco bag back home to his mother in what we consider historic Georgetown today, East 7th Street, and she planted them, and they continued to grow. And by 1990, Georgetown, Texas was named by the state of Texas as the red poppy capital of Texas. And that's not the only thing. You're probably saying, why are you calling him Okra? Well, Okra has a lot of taller than life stories, right? He was actually featured during World War I in Ripley's Believe It or Not. Pearl, he is a German descendant, so he actually spoke some German. So the rumor goes that he actually spent 21 days in a trench and took 2 German soldiers captive without a gun. He was never being issued a gun because he could speak German. And that was actually a cartoon that was featured in Ripley's Believe It or Not. But that nickname, Okra. Well, his father, we're a cotton area, his father told him to plant 1,000 acres of 100, sometimes I get so excited I invent numbers, 100 acres of cotton. And Okra got an idea. He had seen his neighbor plant 1 acre of okra the previous growing season. And he made $1,000 off of that acre. So Okra goes, I'm a smart businessman. I'm going to plant 100 acres of okra. Well, there's one problem. That's probably more okra than all of Williamson County cared to eat. But two, cotton and okra grow very similarly in the beginning. And in fact, his father thought he planted cotton until it started to look a little different. And okra was actually sprouting. But then his father told him to change it, except fate intervened and it started to rain. And it continued to rain. And it rained so much that it got too late to be able to switch to a cotton crop. So that is how Henry Pearl got his nickname Okra. And I'm telling you, he's not just a businessman. He is an inventor of ideas. He invented knee pads, cigarette dispensers, parking meters. And reason why I called him the Space Cowboy, in 1954, he actually filed in Travis County for mineral rights to the moon. Yeah, we didn't even go to the moon until 1969. Sadly, because he only filed them in Texas, in Travis County, his mineral rights to the moon were not honored nationally, but I like to thank this Space Cowboy. So, I'm going to turn it over for some space cocktails and food, and Okra and I are going to beat it.
All right, and right before we get to those cocktails, I just want to remind everyone, in addition to our auction, we are doing a live raffle with 3 fantastic items. Our first is this 1-carat diamond earrings that was donated by Quinnens. Thank you, Quinnens. We also have a 2020 survival luck basket. I don't know if you can tell in the pictures, but it's got all sorts of goodies. Over a potential of $1 million in lotto tickets, as well as some extra things in case you don't win. And then the third is going to be an experience. It's an overnight at a museum. We rarely do these. And what's really cool is we'll tailor it to the group. So if you want to buy it for, your 6-year-old's birthday party, we'll make sure it has, lots of little games and treats for that. Or if you want to have a girls' night out in a museum, we'll make sure to bring the cocktails. So we will tailor it for the group and make sure it's age appropriate. When you are purchasing raffles, there are going to be 2 options. The first is a single ticket for $5, and the other is going to be 30 tickets for $50. And again, you can purchase as many of either of those categories. We will be doing our drawing live on Tuesday at noon, 12 o'clock. On Facebook. All right, let's go make some cocktails. Again, and I have my little helper Denise here. Everyone say hi to Denise.
Hi everybody.
All right, so she's going to show us how to make our Martian snacks, but I am going to show us how to do our cocktails. So if you're looking at that main page, all of the recipes are already on there. This specific cocktail is going to be the third on that right panel. So this is Danielle's Dark Space Cocktail. And I already have everything kind of portioned out, but you can see on that recipe what the specific portions are. So I'm just going to kind of show you how to mix it all together. So first, again, we're going to put all of our fruits in a shaker. And then we're going to go ahead and add 1 ounce of simple syrup. Not to spill that. And then we are going to muddle this together. And I don't have my trusty muddle here. I think we were washing it. So Danielle's going to go grab it for me. When you are muddling, just make sure you use some force with that. This is really what's going to give us our flavor. So now that I have my muddle, all right. And again, you're trying to get flavor. You don't want to mash this so much though that you're going to be tasting all those bits or have anything chunky in there. And then one little tip that we kind of found out on our own. The idea of this is you'll have a little hint of a green coloring. If you want it to be more green, to be more space-like, just add some more grapes. That seems to do the trick. All right, I think we're at good. All right, now you want to add your ice. And we did some fun star ice. I don't know if you can see that. And then we are going to add 3 ounces of gin. Danielle's favorite gin is Tanqueray, so you guys can use any gin you want. I also recommend Hendrick's. It's got an extra cucumbery taste to it. All right, I think that's good. Okay. And next, we're gonna shake it up. Woo! All right. And then we've got our little glasses here. Let's see how green it turns. Not too green. Like I said, if you want it to be a little bit more green, just some more grapes will do the trick. And then last but not least, we're going to top this off with a little bit of club soda. All right, and I will let my trusty helper be the tester of it.
All right. Delicious. It is out of this world.
All right, now tell us a little bit about your snack.
All right. Well, once you get a couple of glasses of those, you're going to be real hungry. So we have a healthy snack recipe for you. It's also on the same page as the drinks, just at the very bottom. These are called our Martian Museum crackers. So we've got a few of them right here, but I'm going to show you how to make one. So you'll take your rice cracker here. And the first thing you're going to do is you are going to spread some delicious hummus right on the top there. As much as you want. And then your next step, because you got to have the green for the Martian, right? You are going to take a cucumber. So this probably would pair very nicely with Andrea's favorite gin. And then, right on top of that cucumber, you are going to stick some mozzarella and half of a cherry tomato. Okay, now here comes the real tricky part with these antennae that you're about to add. You're going to take your toothpick and you are going to spear the tomato all the way through the cucumber. It is tricky. Have fun. There we are. We have our Martian Museum cracker, and we're going to let Andrea do a taste test of this one.
So the first thing I'm going to recommend is taking out the toothpicks to make sure you don't get stabbed. It's good. And it's healthy. Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Danielle, I think she's got a little bit more for us.
Alrighty, and I'm back. But this time we are actually going to get a little spooky because it's October and we're in space. So what better thing to do than tell a little bit of a spooky Williamson County legend. So tonight we're going to talk about Josiah Wilbarger. And so we're going to go all the way back to the 1840s, right before Williamson County was founded in 1848. And Josiah Wilbarger was a man who lived here, and he and some of his friends went out on a hunting party one day. And while they were hunting, a group of Comanches came upon them, and they killed one of the men instantly, and Josiah was scalped. Now, his 2 other friends, they were able to get away, and they left Josiah there because they didn't figure anybody could survive a scalping. So the 2 friends go back to their wives at home, and they tell the wives what happened with Josiah. Now, they go to bed like any normal night, but in the middle of the night, one of the men's wives wakes up, and she wakes up her husband, and she says, I had a dream that Josiah is alive, and he's sitting up against a tree down where you all were attacked. Now the husband says, just go back to sleep. You're just having a nightmare. And so the wife goes back to sleep, but just a little bit later, she wakes up again and tells her husband, no, I had the same dream. You have to go check this out. So he figures she's not going to go back to sleep and she's just going to keep insisting. So he gets his friends together again and they go back out to where the attack happened. And sure enough, they see Josiah sitting there up against the tree. And he's barely conscious, but he's alive. He's got maggots in his wounds on his head, but he's there. So they pick him up and they take him back, and they bring him back, and he spends a couple days recovering. And then he tells them, my sister came to me in a dream when I was there, and she told me, Josiah, go sit against that tree and help will come. And so he did. Well, now that he's awoken, they have a letter that's come from states away. And this letter tells them that Josiah's sister actually passed away a day before the attack happened. But he would have had no way of knowing because news did not travel that fast back then, as it had to come through mail. Well, Josiah goes on to live for 9 more years. He used a cloth covering to cover up the wounds on his head. But 9 years later, he bumped into the top of a door frame and infection set in his wounds, and he actually passed away from that. Now, if you want to hear more Williamson County legends and some more spooky stories on the Georgetown Square, there's actually a private ghost tour set up as one of our auction items. So definitely make sure that you check that out, and you will have a great ghost tour guide to tell you even more. So now we're going to go back to Danielle to tell you about some more things for the auction.
Hello, everybody. Are you scared? Spooky stories? Well, what I need you to do is listen right now. If you've come to Cattleman's Ball in the past, this is actually, even though it's our virtual, this is our 9th Cattleman's Ball. And next year, we hope to have a spectacular 10th annual Cattleman's Ball when we're all together and safe. But in the meantime, this works. The one great thing of this is we have the greatest party, but sometimes it's hard to hear. And I know if you're watching this live stream, because everybody else in the room up here where I'm filming it, they're quiet, so you can hear me. And it's important because we're going to talk about Fund a Need. And some of you have already donated to us to fund some things. But I want to talk about what your money, what it can do, what a tangible difference it can make to our museum and our organization. So first of all, if you have $3,000 to give us, you can sponsor a Galt site exhibit. So we have had a series of big exhibits. We're actually splitting that exhibit into 2. And we're going to have, it's been a while, but we're going to have a dedicated Galt site. If you're just turning in with us for the first time, you're like, Danielle, what in the world is the Galt site? Well, the Galt site is probably the most historically significant thing that we have here in Williamson County. It's historically significant to North America. It's historically significant, period. The Galt site, you can actually take a tour of it if you're interested. We do tours every other month, in part with the Galt site and with Bell County Museum, because it straddles the Williamson County, Bell County line. But the Galt site gives us an insight to Paleo Indians. So that is pre-Clovis people, some of the earliest people in the Americas. 13,000 years ago. They've dug dig pits even farther back. In fact, it is a confirmed mammoth kill site. And with our flint and chert around here, the Galt site is important. So for $3,000, you can sponsor that exhibit, and make sure that we can put together an exhibit that does the Galt site justice. And with your money, what we want to do is we actually want because it has some of the earliest American art, like cave drawings, rock drawings. We wanted to make a cave in this exhibit. So with your money sponsoring this exhibit, you can make it happen. If you don't have quite that much to spend, we have other opportunities, so don't you worry. For $2,000, you can sponsor our Heritage and Horizons, the Black Legacy of Williamson County. This exhibit is opening in February of 2021. We are working in partnership with historically Black organizations in Williamson County to put together our community-based exhibit. Because this is actually our third community-based exhibit. In 2016, we opened our very first, which was Nuestra Comunidad, the Hispanic heritage roots of Williamson County. And we literally went into Williamson County, went into those Hispanic groups, and asked them, how do you want to put this exhibit together? And they worked side by side with our curator to, one, preserve their histories, because everybody's history should be heard. And two, to put together an exhibit that tells the story of specific communities in Williamson County. So, with $2,000, you can sponsor that exhibit and make sure that our programming is not just for February Black History Month. It'll run through the length of that and help tell the story of the Black legacy in Williamson County. For $1,000, you can actually preserve an artifact collection. I said that we have over 13,000 items. We have things like a Union knapsack, fought in the Civil War, and then went on the Chisholm Trail. We have large collections of Swedish artifacts, Swedish family settlers. In fact, part of that, because she's from Round Rock, in that part of that Palm family collection and the W.D. Kelly Foundation collection, we have letters that talk about Barbette. And if you don't know about Barbette, you'll have to watch one of our other virtual programming that we did for Pride Month in June. But Barbette was a aerialist trapeze that she was a man, Vander Clyde, but performed as Barbette. And so she's one of those interesting local legends that you can help preserve for $1,000 and preserve an artifact collection and help us at the core of it with our objects and help us tell those stories. For $500, you can sponsor a field trip for Title I schools. Field trips are not stopping just because there's a pandemic going on. In fact, in November, we will see every single 8th grader in Georgetown ISD. We normally do our Field of Honor field trips, but we will actually be doing virtual field trips, pretty much in a filming setting just like this for those field trips. So if you sponsor it, you'll make sure that a Title I school that maybe doesn't have as many resources are able to be part of the museum. Or maybe later in the spring, if things are looking better, they can actually physically come to the museum. Your $500 can do that and tell the stories to a local student. Speaking of students, so I've been at the museum a little over 6 years. The very first program I ever ran was Summer History Camp. And for $250, you can sponsor a child for Summer History Explorers Camp. Did you notice? The phone rings. Maybe somebody has a technical question. But for $250, you can sponsor a child for Summer History Explorers Camp. It's special to me because if you came to Cattleman's Ball last year, you saw Max give a testimony. Max has actually been coming to Summer History Camp as long as I've been doing it. So we've done 7 together. He was first my camper. Now he is a high schooler and he's a volunteer. And yes, this summer we did virtual summer history camps. We did a week of the 1920s, and then we did a week of discovering decades. And we did it so the students could be in the safety of their own homes, but they had packets and activities, and we did them along together. So we can make the stories come alive no matter what's happening in the world. And finally, if you have $100 to give, there's a fund a need for you as well. Sponsor 4 trunks for our Title I schools. So you've heard me say traveling trunks and numbers and museum outreach. Well, what does it mean? The core basis of our museum outreach are our traveling trunks. They literally come in a 65-gallon tub with wheels. And it is an actual trunk filled with our education collection items. So some of them are actually real artifacts. Some are reproductions, but they go into the classroom. And they can actually still go into the classroom safely now, because they can be set there. We can drop it off. We actually take those trunks to them. So I'm driving around Williamson County. And then we have so many here that we can actually live stream to them and still have our trunk presentations. They come with their line to Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. They have artifacts. They have lesson plans. They have activities. They have history. So it's everything. They have primary source documents. Everything that teachers need to teach and make it impactful. We live in a place where there are a lot of historic buildings still standing. And it's interesting to walk around our downtowns, whether it's in Round Rock or Georgetown or Liberty Hill or Granger or Bartlett or Florence, and see these historic buildings that have been standing there. Well, we know what happened in them, and we can make that come alive in the classroom. And you can too, because each trunk is $25. And for $100, you can make sure that that trunk goes to a Title I school 4 times. And don't worry, it won't get repetitive, because we actually have 17 different topics. Everything from science trunks like endangered species, the archaeology, there you go, digging up the past. We have cultural-based trunks like our Hispanic Heritage trunk. We have time periods, turn of the century, 1960s and civil rights, the Chisholm Trail, cowboy trunks, everything, World War II. From pre-K all the way up to high school, we have something for everyone. And you can make sure that everybody in Williamson County, every student, can be touched by the museum. So that is our fund to need. And if you can't make any of those donations, or it's not exactly what you want to give, there is just a general fund to need money spot, and you can put what you can give in it. And we will appreciate any dollar, any penny. So please support the Williamson Museum. So that is our fund to needs, and you can make a difference. Now, we're going to hear from somebody who made a huge difference right here in Williamson County. I've shouted her out a little bit before. You might have heard of her, but we are going to hear from our very own suffragette, Jessie Daniel Ames.
As Danielle said, those of you who are frequent visitors to the museum probably already know a little bit about me, Jessie Daniel Ames. I was featured in 2 recent exhibitions here at the museum. But tonight, let me tell you my story. I was born in Palestine, Texas in 1883. When I was 10 years old, my family moved here to Georgetown. My father worked for the railroad. My mother ran the Georgetown Telephone Company. And when I was 13, I was admitted to Southwestern University. But I have to do a little pause there, because back at that time, Southwestern University was only for men. Women had to apply to the annex of Southwestern University. And that's what I did. And I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree. My family moved to Laredo for a while, and that's where I met my future husband, Roger. Roger was a doctor in the Army. His specialty was researching malaria, yellow fever, other tropical diseases, and trying to figure out if they were really transmitted by mosquitoes. Now, we were married, but since Roger was away so long and there were such long separations, it wasn't really the happiest of marriages, although we did have 3 wonderful children. Sadly, Roger died in the tropics from one of the malaria, yellow fever type diseases that he was researching. So back here in Georgetown, dear to my heart was the civil rights movement and the suffrage movement. I got involved, I rallied, I lobbied, I did everything possible to urge Texas to vote to allow women to vote. Amazingly, we were successful. Texas became the first southern state to allow women to vote. But they passed that with just 17 days to the next election. So in those 17 days, we were back at work again, working hard to get women registered to vote. And back then it was kind of a difficult chore. The roads weren't paved, transportation wasn't all that reliable, but in those 17 days, we got 3,300 women registered. So that was quite a feat. To continue my work with women voters, I started here in Georgetown, the Georgetown Equal Suffragette League. We worked for women's rights. I went on to also work in the American Association of University Women. I was the first president of the local Federated Women's Club. So I was very involved in volunteer activities. And also, while we were in Laredo, my mother, my sister, and I converted to become Methodists. So we also worked very hard with volunteer activities through the Methodist Church. After I had done a lot of work here in Georgetown, I kind of branched my movement out larger, more nationwide. In Atlanta, I started the Association of Southern Women for the Prevention of Lynching. I was truly convinced that women were so much better to deal with the problems of racism and lynching, that men were way too quick to judge, and they would then lynch in the name of saving the virtue of women. So I worked with that organization until it became swallowed up by some larger organizations like the NAACP, who took things to an even higher level in the civil rights movement. I then retired to a little cottage in North Carolina. I worked in Methodist volunteer activities then. I stayed there, really enjoyed my little cottage. But as I got older and frailer, I came back to Georgetown and I moved in with my daughter, Lulu. I lived with Lulu until, sadly, in 1972, I passed away from pneumonia. I am buried in the Oddfellow Cemetery back behind Southwestern University. But during my lifetime, I donated approximately 1,200 books to Southwestern University, being a graduate of the annex. I also, in my memory, Southwestern has started a symposium, the Jessie Daniel Ames Symposium, where each year a guest speaker is brought in and paid for to do a special presentation. So I'm very honored by all that. Now, before I throw it back to 2020 and let them talk about the auction, here we go.
Hello, everybody. Are we having fun? We have seen every little bit of the Williamson Museum. I wanted to show you, because I know I've been watching the bidding happen. There's been some bidding wars over this. There's been some bidding wars over our baskets. But I just want to show you, this Nolan Ryan thing is, these newspapers are literally as old as I am. They are signed by Nolan Ryan. There are 2 of them. And they're custom framed. Plus, you get some of his wonderful steak seasonings and his cookbook as well. So keep bidding on the Nolan Ryan. Keep bidding on things like our Texas Pride basket. Do you know that you can actually win the American flag that flew over the Alamo on October 10th. And October 10th is special in Williamson County because on October 10th, 1848, it was the very first district court that was ever held. Our Chief Justice, Greenleaf Fisk, and our wonderful commissioners, William Dalrymple, Washington Anderson, and others that I have seemed to have forgotten off my head. That's okay. Came up with some of them. It's hard to remember all the wonderful history of Williamson County. But I want you guys to know that we truly appreciate every little bit of support that you've shown us. We appreciate our volunteers that came out and helped today. I appreciate the staff that helped us, especially Catherine, who literally, second day on her job, ran this whole thing for us. Would not have been able to do it without us. And, family members and everybody that helps support the museum. That's one of the great things. As you come in, even our volunteers that haven't been able to come in, we love hearing from you. You're all one big part of Williamson County family history. But right before we go, I do want to shout out our sponsors again and remind you guys. So these auction items will be open until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, Central Standard Time, because I know we have some out-of-state bidders as well, although I believe they're still in Central Time. But we have people bidding from out of state. And 9 a.m. tomorrow, you can set a max bid so you don't have to watch it all night. But please continue to bid because every little cent helps and supports us. So I want to thank our sponsors again. So shout out to Carolyn Holloway and the Palace, Jean Hauk, Trish Lepacki and Bob Waring, Garver, T.A. Todd Construction, Rhonda Gerke, Realty Austin, Six Whiskey, They Day Tripper, Quennin's, Fine Jewelers. So hopefully you guys enjoyed our very first and maybe hopefully last. Hopefully next year we'll be in person for our 10th Cattleman's Ball. But we've had an enjoyable time learning and bringing this live stream to life for you guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this virtual Cattleman Cyberspace Charity Social. We'll see you guys when you come into the museum next. Thank you for bidding, sponsoring, supporting us. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday night and weekend. Goodbye, y'all.